It's happening, people, just like the Bible said. The prophets of old and Jesus Christ and his apostles foretold the signs of the last days prophecies. Now they're happening. The Gog of Magog prophecy has signs strongly in the news now. This last days prophecy foretells in Ezekiel 38 that in the latter days someone will attempt to invade Israel. It says that a ruler it calls Gog of Magog, the prince of Rosh, will lead it. This title refers to a strong last days leader of the people of Russia, who are the descendants of an aggressive, dominant tribe known as Magog. They settled in an ancient land called Magog, which lies around and above the Black Sea in what history refers to as the far north, or the northern fringe or roof of the world, which today is Russia, with Moscow as capital being nearly due north of Jerusalem. The prophecy foretells that it's Magog, Russia, and its Gog leader, who with its Arab Islamic allies will in the latter times or last days gather armies at Israel's northern border in an advance of an attempted invasion. And today in Syria, at Israel's northern border, the militaries of Russia, Iran, Turkey, and other Arab groups are present. And this prophecy also describes this prince of Rosh, or Russia, as an aggressive dominant leader in the last days, who grows in world influence, who the countries of the world hesitate to confront directly, finding it difficult to stand up to him. And the prophecy says that countries will only make protest against them. And this Gog of Magog prophecy increasingly has signs in the news. Putin and Russia continue to cross red lines with impunity, even violating country sovereignty, while murdering dozens of prominent ex-Russian officers, diplomats, and spies who left Russia. Not long ago, in Britain, they killed Alexander Litvinenko with a secret miniature nuclear attack by Russia within Britain, where he was killed by nuclear poisoning while meeting his killers in a London restaurant, drinking a cup of tea from a teapot that had been spiked with radioactive polonium by the Russian agents. And now Putin's Russia has attacked Sergei Skripal and his daughter in public in Britain with a rare, deadly military-grade nerve agent called Novichok, which was developed as a chemical weapon only by Russia. And as we look at the reaction of the countries of the world, it's largely been only diplomatic. In responding to the horrific nuclear and chemical attacks on British soil, British Prime Minister May expelled 23 Russians, as she describes here in this clip.
Mr. Speaker, it was right to offer Russia the opportunity to provide an explanation. But their response has demonstrated complete disdain for the gravity of these events. They have provided no credible explanation that could suggest they lost control of their nerve agent. No explanation as to how this agent came to be used in the United Kingdom. No explanation as to why Russia has an undeclared chemical weapons program in contravention of international law. Instead, they have treated the use of a military-grade nerve agent in Europe with sarcasm, contempt, and defiance. So, Mr. Speaker, there is no alternative conclusion other than that the Russian state was culpable for the attempted murder of Mr. Skripal and his daughter, and for threatening the lives of other British citizens in Salisbury, including Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey.
So Britain is making noise about it, but really, again, their action is only diplomatic. And also NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Military Organization, responded as well. Here is the Secretary General's response.
I think we also have to understand that, of course, what triggered this was the Salisbury attack. But it is part of a broader response by NATO allies to a pattern of unacceptable and dangerous behavior by Russia. We have seen the illegal annexation of Crimea. We have seen cyber attacks. We have seen hybrid tactics. And
Oops.
I think we also have to understand that, of course, what triggered this was the Salisbury attack. But it is part of a broader response by NATO allies to a pattern of unacceptable and dangerous behavior by Russia. We have seen the illegal annexation of Crimea. We have seen cyber attacks. We have seen hybrid tactics and the willingness to use military force against neighbors.
The NATO move follows the expulsion of over 140 Russian officials by 25 NATO allies and their partners.
So, the NATO Secretary General calls it an outright attack by Russia and goes on to describe it as part of an ongoing aggressive and dangerous pattern of behavior by Putin's Russia. Really, he described it well, and those are really good, strong words. But what does he and NATO do? They only just reduce Russian staff. Pathetically, diplomatic only. But then Trump responds also. So let's take a look at what he does in this clip. Now, to the surprise of some, Trump's response was certainly more robust than the others. For Trump kicks out 60 Russian spies from the U.S. and orders the closure of a Russian consulate in Seattle, and then kicks out some spies from Russia's mission to the UN to boot. Certainly more than everybody else, however, really still only a diplomatic response in nature. And so, what is Russia's response to all this noise and expulsions? It's just a real big, so what? And along with it, they denounce everybody involved, and they also expel diplomats from Russia for every country that did that to them. And what is Putin doing? He's still walking around with swagger like a cowboy, and he's getting up in front of the who's who of Russia at his annual State of the Nation address in Moscow and threatening the West, saying, "You haven't listened to us in the past, but you will now." And he shows off videos bragging about what he calls his new invincible nuclear weapons that he can use against the West. You've just got to check out this clip.
This is said to be Russia's new superweapon, the Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile, in an animation presented by President Vladimir Putin. He said it was invincible and could hit any point on the planet with a nuclear payload.
Sarmat — это очень грозное оружие. В силу его характеристик никакие, даже перспективные системы ПРО ему не помеха.
Putin was delivering his annual State of the Nation address in Moscow, and he used it to unveil a new arsenal of strategic weapons, which he said had been developed and tested. He told the audience that this submarine-based missile was impossible to track and could deliver nuclear warheads. Putin suggested a nationwide contest to find a name for it.
Это просто фантастика. Они обладают низкой шумностью, высокой маневренностью и практически неуязвимы для противника. Средств, которые могут им противостоять, на сегодняшний день в мире просто не существует.
There was also a new nuclear-powered cruise missile with practically unlimited range.
Это обход рубежей обороны показываем.
An air-to-surface missile called Kinjal, and a ballistic missile with wings, which he said approached its target like a meteorite.
А тем, кто на протяжении последних 15 лет старается раздувать гонку вооружений, вводят незаконные с международно-правовой точки зрения ограничения и санкции с целью сдержать развитие нашей страны, в том числе в военной области, скажу, все то, чему вы пытались помешать, воспрепятствовать, проводя такую политику, уже свершилось. Сдержать Россию не удалось.
Putin said Russia had developed the weapons in response to US policies, such as NATO expansion and the development of missile defense systems. He said Russia had tried to explain its opposition to these policies.
С нами никто по существу не хотел разговаривать. Нас никто не слушал. Послушайте сейчас.
Putin's speech came just weeks before the presidential election on March the 18th, and some commentators have suggested it was aimed as much at Russian voters as foreign leaders. But in any case, he said potential adversaries needed to take account of what he called a new reality, and added, this is not a bluff.
So, Putin's showing off his invincible weapons that he can kick tail with. And then he adds, this is not a bluff. So let's add this up. You've got Putin's dominant and aggressive Russia doing nuclear and chemical attacks on the sovereign soil of foreign countries to kill people. You've got countries responding only diplomatically by saying, you're expelled, like in elementary school. And you've got Putin swaggering around showing off his latest fancy-dancy weapons, saying, don't bluff or mess with us. That's why you've got Putin named by Forbes magazine as the world's most powerful person for several years running, because no one wants to really face up to the world's schoolyard bully. So what's going to come out of all of this? Obviously, Putin will be more emboldened to do what he wants, because he keeps seeing that he can get away with it with no real consequences. And that will eventually lead him, or the future Russian proxy with this same attitude, to make a big mistake. The Gog of Magog prophecy shows that this Gog, prodded by his Arab Islamic allies, will eventually think he can get away with crossing another big red line. So Russia, the prophecy says, with an Arab Islamic alliance, gathers a force at the northern mountainous disputed border of an unsuspecting Israel. But that's when Gog meets up with someone that's not afraid to face up to him. You know, there's always somebody bigger and tougher. And the prophecy says that when they cross over the northern border of Israel to attack, there is one who meets them. And it is the Lord God of Israel, who utterly destroys them.